Hi guys, welcome. And if you're new here, my name is Elaine, and today I'm going to be talking about strategies for buying secondhand bags. If you haven't seen it yet and you're new to buying bags, or you're just, a beginner bag collector, I would recommend checking out my video about my advice for beginner bag collectors or buyers. On that, one of my points is buying secondhand. So I've been buying secondhand bags for probably over 20 years. I've also been selling secondhand bags for over 20 years. I do have some advice. The pre-owned, pre-loved bag market has been changing, and I would say as of 2026, right now it is very much a buyer's market. So not so much for sellers. You're going to be selling at a loss for most things, but for buyers, it's actually a great time to buy if you're looking to start a bag collection or buying some of the bags that you really love. This is just some of my advice for buying secondhand. I think the main fear for a lot of people is getting a fake. So I'll talk about that in a bit as well. But yeah, so let's just start. First and foremost, you should definitely do your research. So if you love a bag, you should look up all the things about the bag. In general, if you're researching online, especially if you're kind of new to the brand, I would look up authentication videos, posts. Purse Forum is always a very good source for that as well. People will tell you, here are some of the things to look for in a fake. I think that will help you weed out maybe 50% of the fakes. Of course, it depends on the brand, it depends on the quality, it depends what price point they were originally sold at. It gets a little trickier these days, I think, with newer fakes. There's super fakes, especially Hermes. It's crazy what they can do now. So, but for vintage bags especially, like I got really good at authenticating Phoebe Philo Celine. So I also did write a authentication post here on my blog. I would say if you're looking for old styles of Celine, a lot of them can be weeded out with some of those tips that I put there. Chanel, I think authentication was doable with just photos up until I would say 2017, 18. By the time they hit the 20 series of numbers though, even the Purse Forum women who used to authenticate stopped authenticating through photos because it was just too good. So if you're looking at current styles, new bags, I don't think it would be just good enough just doing research online. But it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to kind of know what fakes look like, how to tell them apart. This is sort of, I feel like, the bare minimum if you're going to be buying an expensive bag online. That said, I do think, especially if you're first starting out, you should try to get your bag authenticated before you buy it. So I've used Legit Grails, but I also have heard really good things about Real Authentication. I'll put both website links down below. I'm not affiliated with them. I do not earn any money off this, but they are one of those photo-based authentication services. Of course, they use mostly AI for this stuff, but they are getting very good at it. The one that you'll hear a lot for AI authentication is Entropy. A lot of resellers use that. Even eBay's authentication system uses that. And I would say it's pretty good. So if you can get it authenticated before you buy it, that'd be great. So you go onto their website, you see what kind of photos they're asking for. It's usually front, back. If it has some sort of monogram design, they're going to want a close-up. Definitely all the logos, serial code or date codes. And I think that's a good place to start. Once you get it, you still definitely want to get it authenticated, but you also have to kind of know what the real thing looks and feels like. Go to the boutique if you can and just try it on, feel it. In general too, it's good to go to the boutique and try it on in person because you don't know how that bag actually wears in real life. Like I talked about in my previous video, for advice for bag buyers is, you gotta try it out with all your stuff in it, just like putting on a pair of shoes and walking around the store. Put your stuff in the bag and walk around the store and go in front of a mirror and just see what it looks like, because how a bag is stuffed and displayed is definitely different from how it wears and how it looks when you put stuff in it. I think getting to know the real thing helps. Sometimes with Hermes, of course, you can't really go into a boutique and just try on a Birkin. So, there are places like The Real and Fashion File. They have brick and mortar stores that you can try out some of those things and just to see what they're like. It's good to do as much legwork before you buy the secondhand item, just so that when you do get it, you kind of understand, like you have expectations. You kind of know how it feels. You know if it's a little bit heavy, not heavy. you know, how the leather feels. Another thing that I do online to do research about the bag before I buy a bag is I will see what kind of replicas are out there. So I will search for like a puzzle replica, Loewe small puzzle replica. They don't usually have a lot of pictures, and sometimes I feel like they'll use the authentic picture to sell the fake item. You know, it's all shady, right? But I think at the very least you kind of get an idea of what kind of colorways that are frequently faked, so that when you do see that colorway, you know, you can take a second to say, well, I've seen a lot of fakes of those. How do I know if that's not a fake? So like, say this one here, the soft cube bag, this is old Celine, Phoebe Philo Celine. So this is like 2010 maybe, around there. And at that time, it wasn't a hugely popular bag, but there were fakes of this in red. There was quite a few in red. This is actually a secondhand bag that I bought used, and I felt a little bit more reassured that if I couldn't find a fake in that color, that, you know, it's less likely for this to be a fake. Of course, again, it's not always true, and also it's a little bit trickier when it comes to like bags that are in like plain colors like this, you know? So, but it helps. It helps. Of course, the most important part is where you buy it from. So there are a lot of resellers these days. It's a booming market. Everybody wants to get in. I mean, heck, I'm kind of even a reseller. If you go to my Instagram at Fairly Curated Closet, and that's where my closet sale is, like, I'm a reseller. I'm selling some of my bags. So my personal favorite, if you've been following along for a while, this should come as no surprise, is Brandier. So that is a Japanese reseller. They sell most of their stuff on eBay. I personally like them because I've gotten quite a few bags from them, and only one turned out to be fake. It was a Row Park tote, and I told them about it, and no questions asked, super easy return via DHL. They took it back, gave me a full refund, and it was super, super easy. So I was lucky that I could tell that it was a fake, because that's not always the case, right? But for the most part, Japanese resellers, I feel like, do a more diligent job of weeding out the fakes. I'm pretty sure they use pretty much the same software, AI software, that we use to authenticate. You know, they have millions of bags, and they do have a lot of experience authenticating. Especially, I think the Row at that time was a fairly new brand to them, and I can understand why. But I've purchased a lot of bags from them. I wouldn't say 100, but I mean, quite a lot. And so all of those were real, whether I authenticated or used legit grails. I knew. And also they do take returns. But yeah, that's another tip. It's like you definitely want to be buying bags from resellers that take returns. So that automatically disqualifies the real. So as much as I love the real, I do buy clothes, shoes, jewelry, but I have slowly stopped buying bags from them. Yeah, I know they authenticate, but things slip through the cracks, and there's just been some shady businesses in the past. And I think part of it is because Hermes fakes have gotten really good these days. It's so scary when it comes to Hermes. It's a whole nother level, really. I wouldn't buy from places that do not take returns. I do still buy from Fashion File once in a while, so their pricing is not as great, but they do accept returns, and I do think their authentication is a little bit better. So eBay also does do an authentication service. Again, they just use AI, but I would say their authentication service is along the same lines as the Real. I've had one bad experience with them, and I don't trust them personally, but you know, other people do. And I think it's just the luck of the draw of like who is the authenticator that, you know, is authenticating your bag. For me, I just stick with Japanese resellers because Japanese law is a lot stricter towards counterfeits. They are usually a lot more careful. Let's see, other than that, when you buy a secondhand bag, you definitely want as many pictures as possible. So again, this disqualifies the real. You want to have a return policy. Disqualifies the real. You definitely want to do a lot of research beforehand. I also forgot to mention, when you're doing research online to see if something's authentic or not, something I do pretty often is I will take one that I'm pretty sure is real, whether it comes from Fashion File or if you can get something from the actual main website, like say a serial code or date code or a logo, something that has some sort of printing, because it's usually in the details where the fakes reveal themselves, I should say, especially hardware engravings or embossing. That's usually where you can see a fake. It's just not going to be as clean for a lot of the letterings. Or sometimes the lettering would be a different looking font. It'll be close but not quite, or spacing. So what I usually will do is take the bag that I'm interested in and I'll take a zoomed in screenshot. I usually do this through my phone, you know, as clear as possible, as big as possible, and see if I can see any differences and see if the one that I'm interested in looks like the ones that I believe are real. It's not a perfect system, but it helps a lot. If you are a avid secondhand bag buyer, please put down your advice too if I missed anything here. I definitely want to help those who are new to buying secondhand to try it out. It's good for the environment and it's good for your wallet, right? So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video and have watched maybe some of my other videos, please consider subscribing if you haven't yet. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Bye.